Welcome to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP.
But what does that look like to be poised for greatness?
Yeah, that's such a great question. When I was thinking about, because I wrote the book first, and for like 2 years, I couldn't come up with a title for it.
Okay.
And I sat with myself for a full day, no interruptions, no phones, no cells. And I thought about, well, what am I really saying here? What is this? What is the essence of this book in terms of what the title should be? Yeah. And with Poised for Greatness, it's a process that positions you for the next level of reaching your highest potential as an individual.
Please put that on repeat twice.
Welcome to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, where we get VIP access into the lives of Black women, or as we like to call us here, our SistaNistas. We get to hear from some of our favorite SistaNistas as they share their worlds with us and create connections, exchange realities, ideas, and baby, we get to recognize and celebrate how powerful we really are. Welcome to our queendom. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and I'm your host, TracyMac. Come on in and relax and sit with me for just a little while. Peace.
Well, hello, everybody. I am TracyMac, your professional peacemaker and host of Black Women's World Podcast. That's the BWWP, baby. Don't get it twisted. Here, listen, at the Black Women's World Podcast, I love giving you VIP access into the lives of Black women who we lovingly refer to as our SistaNistas. And today, BWWP audience, I have with me Erica Austin. Erica Austin is a speaker, a powerhouse speaker to be exact, but she's also a coach. I shared with Erica before we started recording. She wrote her first book at 9 years old, y'all. At 9 years old, I might have been writing, but it wasn't a book. And Erica's new book, Poised for Greatness. We're here to talk all about that, and Erica can get to know who she is. But I want Erica, just chime in, Erica, jump in, because I'm so glad to have you with me here today. How are you?
TracyMac, I am doing well. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on the Black Women's World Podcast and being able to share with your audience. It's truly a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. We just mentioned your new book, Poised for Greatness, but this is not your first rodeo, Erica. You have been an author before. Like I said, 9 years old, you wrote your first, but then you have an award-winning book. Share with the audience what your award-winning book is about and the title, all the juice about that.
Absolutely. Well, let me spill the tea. So I got started at a very early age, Tracy, as you mentioned. My first book, What Every Child Should Know About Prayer from a Child's Point of View, I wrote at the tender age of just 9 years old. And just a little bit of quick background behind that. You know, I grew up in the church, having been raised with a very strong spiritual foundation. My father was always encouraging me to look inward, to think about my passion and how I would show up in the world. And so I was inspired because we went to see a movie on a Saturday. Some of your audience may be old enough to recall. It was a movie called Harriet the Spy, which was about a young girl who loved to spy on people and chronicle her findings. And so I walked away feeling very inspired by her passion for writing. And so on the way home, I turned to my father. I said, Dad, you know, I think I'd like to write a book. And he looked at me the way most parents would probably look at their child that declares, you know, such a major interest. And he said, well, Erica, what would you like to write about? I paused for a long time and thought about it. And I said, Dad, you know, I think I'd like to write a book about prayer for children.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now we kind of similar, grew up in a spiritual religious household, grew up in the church. My dad used to say, you can grow up in the church, but that don't mean nothing because you can raise windows in the church. So you better have a relationship. So based on what you just said, how was your relationship with God as a child that you felt like you had the ability to write about prayer?
Yeah. Thank you so much for the question, Tracy. I get it often. As I mentioned, I was raised in the church, Bible study on Sundays,
Yeah.
church services. And at a very early age, my father taught me the importance of prayer. He said, you're going to encounter a lot of different challenges as you navigate this world. But one thing you can rely on is the power of prayer. And so I wanted to create a book that would share with other children my age what I knew about God and spirituality at that time.
Yeah.
And that essentially was the genesis of what every child should know about prayer. It's helping young people to establish a personal relationship with God and to incorporate prayer into their daily lives, which is the
Wow.
book's design.
Wow, that's great, because when we think about prayer, it is a conversation with God. It is a two-way. As a young child too, who was very in tuned with my relationship with God and spirituality, prayer was I probably converse more with God as my imaginary friend than I had than I had physical friends. But Erica, where did that lead you? Did that book take off? Was it something that was just a keepsake? Where did that lead you as to how you have arrived to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So it really took off because when I published What Every Child Should Know About Prayer at the age of 9, I was just inspired, but I had no idea what I was truly signing myself up for. The word got out, thanks to Dad being, having a sales background, that I had written this book, and all of a sudden there was an onslaught of requests for me to speak at different church events and youth conferences, and other speaking opportunities really just started to unfold. And I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. So at that time I was considered, I guess, a child prodigy, because children writing books during that time really was unheard of.
Well, I mean, even now.
Yeah. I mean, now we're starting to see more
Yeah.
examples of young people
Yeah.
sharing their stories. But at that time, it truly was unheard of. I had a lot of challenges with trying to get published as a child
Yeah.
author. Publishers thought, wow, this is a super cool concept, great book, but it was foreign territory for a lot of the mainstream publishers. So I ended up self-publishing the book and used that as a launch pad to inspire other children to look inward, discover their passions, and reach their highest potential by using their God-given gifts and talents.
I love
That's
it.
my
I
life's
love
work.
it. I love it. I love it coming from a child's perspective, especially two children, because as we know as adults now, some adults don't even have that
Yeah.
connection with their passion and their purpose. And so the earlier you get it, the more life you can live full and whole. And you mentioned as far as speaking. Now, I know you as a powerhouse speaker, and the different topics you speak on. Was the book is what led you into the speaking arena?
Absolutely, Tracy. It was kind of a natural evolution, because when you're an author, as you know, Tracy, being a fellow author, a best-selling author at that, you know that when you write a book, people want to tap you on the shoulder to come and talk about it.
Yeah.
And so at 9 years old, I was kind of, I don't want to say propelled, but I was kind of like, I propelled into public speaking. Thank goodness I didn't mind sharing. I wasn't a nervous child or a shy child growing up. I call myself an extrovert with introvert tendencies, so to speak. So at 9 years old, I'm speaking, I'm book signing, I'm sharing my story. And essentially that's how I got started. And I've been talking about the importance of education. I talk about the importance of discovering your passion and pursuing your gifts and talents, even in the face of adversity. So those are some of the topics that I'm very comfortable with.
Excellent, Erica. Excellent. We have so many things in common. That ambivert behavior, having to be extrovert when it comes to, your speaking and your writing and interacting with the public. But I mean, really feeling more comfortable alone or with small audiences, that's there too. And look, SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers, we are talking to author and powerhouse speaker, Erica Austin. If you want to connect with Erica, because we're going to get into the main topic of this particular podcast is her new book, hot off the press, baby. The ink ain't even quite dry because Erica is just had a book reveal, but the title of her book is Poised for Greatness. And I want you to know now, Erica's on Instagram under Miss E. Austin on Instagram. She is on Twitter at Erica for Youth, as well as Facebook, Erica for Youth, because coming out of that background of being an author at 9, speaking to youth about God, Erica, your path has taken you now to, I'm sure I'm skipping a whole lot, but now Poised for Greatness. Talk about that. What was the aspiration and inspiration behind your new book?
Yes, absolutely. So, Tracy, Poised for Greatness is such a very special project to me, much like my first book, What Every Child Should Know About Prayer, because I have not formally published anything since 9 years of age. So it's been over 20 years since I felt inspired to release a new book. And so Poised for Greatness is really just a culmination of all the takeaways, the lessons learned that I have obtained during the course of my formative years, growing up as a child into my teenage years, into young adulthood, and now being a real grown woman, so to speak. So many women have poured into me, and I wanted to create a book in a digestible format that I could share with girls and young women that essentially would inspire young women to look inward, to discover their passion, to unlock the potential that lies within us all, and to elevate towards a path of greatness. So that's what Poised for Greatness is all about. And I'm so excited to share this particular book with the world.
Wow, it sounds exciting. It sounds exciting, especially, it was a later question, but you answered it now. Who is your ideal reader for girls and women to tap into that greatness and through self-discovery, knowing who you are? Because if you don't know who you are, the world will tell you, and they'll treat you accordingly. So Erica, you said it was a lull, about a 20-year time span. I don't want to say you weren't doing anything, but a time span between your first book at 9 and now Poised for Greatness. What made you decide that now was the time to write a book again?
Yeah, absolutely. So Tracy, I have been sitting on this manuscript for over 5 years now.
Okay.
Because it's as a writer, you're going through that content refinement process, right? I mean, this is literally your baby, so to speak. And it took a while for me to find my voice, to package all that I have learned in the course of my development as a young woman, and to create what I think would be an excellent resource for the current generation, but also women coming up. We need to be poured into like never before. So I wanted to add my voice to the mix and producing a project or body of work that I think will have the potential to be truly inspiring for girls and young women.
Wow. Author Erica Austin. Erica, you are so, you excite me. Just hearing your response in this conversation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Erica Austin.
Stay tuned for more of the BWWP.
Coming soon, Poised for Greatness by author Erica Austin. Pre-order your copy today.
You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast. Let's continue the conversation.
Erica, when you said that having the voice in the mix, because we know there are a lot of authors now, the ease of authorship is there. And you said you sat on that manuscript for 5 years. Now, someone, whether it be a SistaNista here in the United States or all over the world, because we have Black women and SistaNista lovers who we lovingly refer to them as, who are listening from about 142 countries. And someone may have that manuscript sitting there. Someone may have a book in them. What was the key to take that book from manuscript to the reality of releasing it this month and in early November, because you can pre-order Erica's book too on her website at ericaAustin.com. What made you take it from just a manuscript, that dream, to reality? Encourage someone who's listening.
You know what, Tracy, that's such a great question. For me, it was passion. I think for all of us, when we have passion, it's like this burning desire that lies inside. And you're like, I have this gift. I have this talent. I have this incredible story to share that I know will make a difference in someone else's life. And I needed to unleash that fire inside.
You had to let it rip, Erica. You wanted to let it rip.
I had to let it rip. And that's where I feel like Poised for Greatness comes into play, because it's going from passion to purpose to execution of your dreams.
Girl. Hey,
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah. There are levels to this. There's levels to this, because a lot of people have ideas and concepts, but how do you go from idea phase to execution phase? How do you create a roadmap that gets you to the next level where you're walking and living in purpose? And Tracy, you this is your lane. I listen to your podcast, and you're inspiring and empowering women across the globe to reach for greatness. It's such important work.
Yes. Oh my God. I literally got a couple goosies. I'm just going to tell you, because the greatness that we help them you are narrowing the gap. That when you talk about a roadmap, sometimes, especially as Black women, we don't ask for help. And when we don't use our mouths, you have people like Erica that is taking the time to give you a roadmap by way of a book. Where if you're too reluctant to ask out loud, you have a book. We have different ways that we can reach people to tap into their greatness, because she also mentioned passion. And when I think about passion, we think about that bold enthusiasm, that thing, or like we say, fire shut up in our bones. But it also means, the Latin word, paseo, means to suffer just for a little while for a greater good. Now, Erica, were there some sufferings that you had to deal with in the process of going from your book when you were 9 to Poised for Greatness?
Absolutely. Life's challenges affect us all. No one gets through this life without encountering some type of adversity. And for me, some of my initial challenges in pursuing my passion was, and I talked about this earlier, was the perceived barrier of getting published as a child author, right? Because as children, you're told, well, you wait until you're older, right? Your voice, it's cute, but it doesn't really matter yet, right? And so thankfully, I was raised by my father, who poured into me, who encouraged me to go for my dreams. He was always instilling in me this sense of purpose, that I could go beyond myself and really make a difference, not just in my life, but in the lives of other people. So that was some of the initial earlier challenges. But then as I grew up, I was really grappling with purpose versus having just a regular life. And one a day.
Wait, hold up, Erica. I want you to break it down to the listeners. What do you mean? What's the difference between purpose and having a regular life?
When you're living in purpose, right, you're going to be met with a higher set of challenges, right? And roadblocks that you may not encounter when you're just, I don't want to say living a life of mediocrity, but when you're not walking in purpose, right? When you're walking in purpose, you may lose some friends. There may be a lot more naysayers about, your business idea. The banks may be telling you no in terms of, getting financing for your business concept.
Yeah, true.
And so when you put yourself out there, because you've got the confidence to go for your dreams, you've got to have faith. And I talk about this in Poised for Greatness, right? You've got to have the passion that says, no matter what, I am going to go for my dreams. I'm going to go for my purpose, because this is my calling. This is what God has put in my heart to do as my calling, right? And so it's so important to, arm yourself with not only just the love of Christ, but with supporters, with communities like Black Women World Podcast that affirms all that we are and all that we're called to be.
Yes, yes. Oh my God, Erica. Oh my, ladies and gentlemen, SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers, Erica Austin, author, powerhouse speaker. You see, some people say powerhouse and they don't deserve it. But can you see this lady right here? She deserves. She
Oh, you
is a
chase me for
powerhouse,
something.
a powerhouse indeed. Erica, when we're thinking about greatness, poised for greatness, share with the audience what that looks like without blowing the thunder on the book, because we want them to read the book. But what does that look like to be poised for greatness?
Yeah, that's such a great question. When I was thinking about, because I wrote the book first, and
Uh-huh.
for like 2 years, I couldn't come up with the title for it.
Okay.
And I sat with myself for a full day, no interruptions, no phones, no cells. And I thought about, well, what am I really saying here? What is this? What is the essence of this book in
Okay.
terms of what the title should be?
Yeah.
And with Poised for Greatness, it's a process that positions you for the next level of reaching your highest potential as an individual.
Please put that on repeat twice.
I was saying, it's a process that essentially positions you for excelling to that next level of reaching your highest potential in life.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's Poised for Greatness, folks. That's what it's all about, because we don't just get to greatness, right? There's a path that God ordains. There's steps that we have to take in exercising our faith to reach the next level.
Great. Oh my God. Poised for Greatness, author, powerhouse speaker, Erica Austin. Erica, what you mentioned women and girls. I know you catered to girls when you were 9, and now that you have become a woman, that women are your ideal readers. Is there a specific demographic at a particular age? What woman? Tell us, because we've got SistaNistas who may be listening who could be your ideal readers who could benefit from reading Poised to Greatness.
I would say as young as 12 and as seasoned as 100 years old.
Baby, she covering it all. She is covering the whole field.
You know what? I don't, obviously for publishing purposes, we have to have a target audience, but
Yeah.
I want to be careful about limiting the potential reach of a book of this type. Just because I feel like the message is timeless and can be well received
Yes.
with a very broad audience. Even when I published What Every Child Should Know About Prayer, I had adults coming up to me saying, you know what, I bought this book for myself because I really need to get back to the basics of renewing my faith in God. And this book helped me to get there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let's not limit the power of words and storytelling.
Yeah. So anybody, any woman, any girl, any can benefit from reading Poised for Greatness, because we're all destined for greatness. And so when you talk about the publishing process, or you talk about self-publishing, when the first book, this book, is it self-published, or do you have a publisher for this particular work?
I do have a publisher for this particular work. It's still considered self-publishing, and there's very specific reasons why I personally lean towards self-publishing versus the traditional publishing. That's a whole other session, but I'm happy to talk about it. One thing that I've been doing, Tracy, I'd like to share with your viewers is that I have a group on Facebook called the Aspiring Writer Series, where I provide very practical guidance on how to take your ideas, put them on paper into the form of a manuscript and getting published. I talk about the tools and the resources that have supported me in sharing my story with the world.
Excellent. Excellent. Erica's tagline is empowerment through education. And I'm going to tell you, she's doing it just through this podcast. I feel empowered because she's not educating us just with formal education, but educating us on greatness, our spirituality. She's even able to go to her bedrock of prayer. And I am so glad that you have been with us here on the BWWP, Miss Erica Austin. You can reach her at ericaAustin.com. And she mentioned her writers group. Connect with her there. I'm sure. Are those links available on your website, Erica?
Absolutely. You can connect with me on all channels, all social media, Instagram and Twitter, Erica for Youth. Would love to connect with you. And and be of support to your initiatives as well. We're all in this together. TracyMac, I want to thank you for allowing me to be a guest in your very special podcast, Black Women World podcast. This is a tribe, and I
Yes.
feel so excited and ignited about the storytelling and the empowerment that's happening in this space. Thanks again for having me.
Oh, you're welcome, Erica. I'm so glad that you were able to be with us and share Poised for Greatness with us, as well as who you are. And I thank God for you and the voice that you have in the earth. And something you said earlier about you decided to take the book from manuscript to publish because you wanted to put your voice in the mix. A lot of times with so many voices going on in the world, people tend to withdraw, but putting your voice in the mix because there's a somebody that needs to hear Poised for Greatness by Erica Austin. I'm so glad to have you here with us, Erica. Please feel free to come back to the BWWP because you family now, sugar.
Absolutely. I'm part of the Sister Nation. I'm so excited. And thanks again for having me. It's been a pleasure to share.
You're welcome. I am TracyMac of the BWWP. Much love and peace.
You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, brought to you in part by TracyMac Solutions for Life Institute, coaching and training services. No doubt you have enjoyed being in our world, and it doesn't have to stop here. Head on over to blackwomensworld.com. This is my personal invitation to you to stay connected with me on social media and more. I'd love to see you there, and I'm so grateful you came to be with me here. Invite someone else to join you in our queendom next time so they can feel the vibe of our tribe of SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers too. Remember to be kind, be authentic, be generous, be excellent, be grateful, and while you're at it, go ahead and be extraordinary, because that's just what SistaNistas do, on purpose through mission with passion and compassion. It's a Black woman's world, baby, and you, my SistaNista, are proof. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and your host, TracyMac. Wherever you are in the world, may you love and be loved by somebody. Peace.